feels like being super thin is suddenly in again, especially with the rise of weight loss drugs like Ozempic.
Yeah, there's this tremendous pressure, especially as women, to shrink ourselves. But where does that leave our relationship with food and our bodies? Dr. Natalie Gentile is here to try and help us make sense of all of this. I feel as though thin was really in the 80s and 90s. And it's not that it completely went away, but it just kind of faded to the back a little bit. And now I feel like it's at the front of the line. It's back again.
Yeah, this is a favorite topic of mine because there's so much more than just appearance when it goes to this, right? As you mentioned, the food relationship and the relationships with our bodies and our self-worth is something that's worth talking about.
Why do you think this is happening again? Like, why is this coming back up? Is it because we've seen this surge in weight loss drugs that's kind of bringing it to the forefront?
I'm sure that plays a huge part in it, right? Yeah. So we have somewhat accessibility now to weight loss drugs more widely. I'd say it's still quite challenging as a physician practicing this day in and day out, but on the whole, there's this big awareness again and resurgence of there is a way for us to make our bodies look different than they did before. And I want to say there's no problem with wanting to change your body. That's not the problem. But as we've discussed before, it's about the why.
It's about the why.
Right. Yeah, we were just talking about the Sports Illustrated fashion show. I'm sure you probably heard when you were sitting over there. And just how, like, there's just so much pressure to be skinny. How is this impacting our mental health?
Huge impact on women's mental health. I think that by shrinking ourselves, we get quieter. Right? And when we get quieter, we have a lot to say. We have a lot of things that we do. We have a lot of hats we wear. Moms, spouses, women in the community making change. And I think when we start to shrink ourselves, we become quieter and less empowered to have that voice.
And I do think there has to be a break in this really bad cycle of bad messaging that's getting down to all kids, not just to little girls, because I just heard about an incident where a little boy, 5th grade, called a little girl in 5th grade fat. And I thought, there's no fat on any of their bodies, period. And whatever is on their bodies is perfect. This message that you are perfect as you are has to be the messaging. And so when you hear that this is still happening, what does that do to a child's mental health? That's something they carry with them forever.
I think about this so frequently as a family doctor and a mom.
Yeah.
What's the power that we give to words, right? So when my children have said the word fat, there's no response, right? There's no, oh, that's mean. For some people, fat is a word they use to describe their bodies. It's a neutral term. And I think when we start to give power to words, kids pick up on that, and then they use it and weaponize it.
Yeah. Do you think kids are picking up on this more so because of social media, and how is that impacting even us as adults?
Yeah, social media, amazing tool, but widely available, and kids are able to see this. They're able to see changing bodies. They're able to see the fanfare around changing bodies that fit a certain prototype. And also, especially we as women, the way that we're talking about our bodies, kids are picking up on that, and we need to be more aware of that.
Dr. Gentile, how does stress play a factor in all of this as well?
When we talk about unrealistic expectations, as you were mentioning at top of show, these unrealistic expectations can weigh so heavily on women. We already have immense amount of expectations on us in our families and in our communities. And when we're adding this body expectation onto things that most of the time is unattainable, then what? You mentioned, Heather, am I pretty, right? Like, if this person is beautiful and I don't look like that person, does that mean I'm not beautiful? That, even if it's just subconsciously, is going to weigh like a low hum in your body.
Yes, that is very difficult to cope with. How do we cope with it? I guess that's the question. What do we do? Just some simple steps that we can take.
Change the messaging. So a phrase comes up in your mind, right? Change the messaging on how you reframe the way you talk about yourself. Maybe just start there. But also, I would question, how do you react to other people? When you see someone's body changing, what's your response? Is it validating that they look different so they look better? Or can you just help them feel validated that they are acceptable just the way that they are?
The book that I was talking about at the start of the show, one of the things they talk about is our fight or flight response that we all have in our bodies, that when we don't talk kindly to ourselves, that we become the stressor. We become the lion that would be the threat that we're running from. So we have this internal fight or flight that's constantly going on because we become our own stressor because we hate our bodies so much.
I lived that as someone with an eating disorder, very much lived that, and I'm very sensitive to that, and that's why I think it's so important for we as women to have this conversation and spread that message.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's so good, so good. But I try to appreciate just the beautiful women that I'm sitting at the table here with. But I also think like, all right, you know what? You're beautiful too. Like, it's just that constant positive reaffirming messaging that does help.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
good. So glad you're here.
And if you're interested in learning more about Direct Care Physicians of Pittsburgh or Rebel Wellness, we have that information on our website, kdka.com/talkpittsburgh.